Hello. This is going to be a video on different ways to perform using Electron machines, mostly aimed towards newer people that are still kind of trying to get their bearings and figure out how to play, but can also maybe have some new ideas for more familiar people as well. I don't know. This is a video I wanted to do for a little while. I'm not really sure how it's going to turn out, but we'll just kind of go with it. I have four basic ideas of different ways that you can perform and some like pros and cons to them all. But generally these machines, they're pretty open-ended with some like crossover in all the areas. So it's kind of like you just figure out what works for you and you either do that all the time, or maybe this song you play one way and the next song you perform it a different way. But to kind of go straight into it, the first way is the most basic one. It is just like manual mode, I'm going to call it, which is basically just having like one or like two, just like a few patterns, and you're basically muting and unmuting everything and doing everything completely manually. It's the most labor intensive. It's the most kind of organic and mistake prone, but it kind of also has the most like, I don't know, it has the most like feel to it, and that you're going to make like some mistakes and there's going to be some unexpected things that happen, and it kind of can add to the performance sometimes, but it also leaves you open to brain shut off and you forgot to unmute something for a long time or whatever, and then you kind of get mad because you realize that you kind of ruined your song for a while or something like that. But that's electronic music. It's like you're trying to perform every member of an orchestra by yourself. So it's basically just... So I'm going to be playing this song Spellbound. The full song, I'll link to it. That's from maybe a month or two ago. I did this performance. And yeah, so the basic one, this is the manual mode. So I have two patterns that are like the full thing with everything. And so the one is basically a verse, one is a chorus. And usually I'll go into like mute mode so that it's easy to start and stop things. And I like to be in perform mode too, perform kit mode, because that will let me, so all of the patterns in this song all use the same like kit, so they all have the same sounds. So if I tweak the sound on one pattern, then I change patterns, the sound will stay consistent and not sound weird when I change patterns. So I like to use that. It's a pretty handy feature, but you use it or don't use it. So this mode basically like, okay, I'll like, what do I want? Like start out with just like the kick and this like bass thing. And then like you have to be like, okay, I want like these percussions to come in at the next bar, so I have to manually turn them on. Or if you're not in mute mode, you're gonna have to funk and turn them on. And so you just have to kind of keep on top of that while you're playing, while you're also like tweaking other parameters. And that's why it's also nice to be in perform mode, because you can just double tap funk and perform, and it'll turn off perform mode and then turn it back on, which basically is like reloading. It'll do the same thing. So I mean, I don't really need to talk about this too much more. Like, this is the other pattern. So like I can switch to that, but then I have to like manually switch back. This is like a fun mode and a fun way of playing, and a lot of people do that. It's kind of probably the most common with Electron machines. But like, just be aware that it's easy to get tripped up and get lost especially if you're playing live, because like you have to, like if you want to be doing interesting parameter tweaks, you have to also manually be muting and unmuting things and changing patterns at the same time if you have a second pattern or something. But with this mode also, there's not too much pattern changing because you're trying to keep everything kind of limited to like 1 or 2 patterns. So it's not too bad in that regard. The other thing is if you're like tweaking something and you get like, I'm actually not even going to bother doing it because I don't want to get too into the weeds. But if you're tweaking and you get somewhere while you're playing with it that sounds cool, you can just live copy that pattern into another slot and then go back to your other one and reload it. And then you have like a alternative thing that you can switch between. So that's a fun thing you can do. Remember that you can always copy and paste patterns while you're playing. And it gives you kind of like saves to return to kind of thing. Another thing is that this mode lets you easily use like page loop. It's a little less useful when you have like multiple machines, because you have to kind of like, see now I'm just looping the first page, but you have to like do it on both machines unless you're only looping a melody or you're only looping one thing and not the other. It's a bit of a pain though, but page looping you can easily do with this mode. All right, the next way that you can perform is to have, and this is kind of a weird one, but I've seen other people do it and I haven't really done it too much myself, but you can have multiple patterns set up with the mutes kind of like built in already by like making the pattern once like that one and then copying it over several slots and then going through each of those and kind of removing. So I'll show you, this is one pattern and then I can change patterns to this one and it has like some different things already set up. Another, and it's the same with the ones on the bottom for the chorus as well. That's a different way of doing it because that lets you kind of take the muting part off of you, and you just kind of know like when you want to go to the next progression, like you want to like build up, you can have it like ramping up in intensity from left to right or something. And when you need like more intense, you go to the right. When you want less intense, you go to the left. And then you can have like the second line be like this, the alternative, like the B section. Like I have like the chorus kind of on the bottom in the same left to right thing. So like I can just like be playing and be like tweaking this. Change patterns without worrying about the muting. Reload the kit so that my weird sound's gone. And then I can just be like, okay, let's go into a simple version of the chorus on the lowest intensity. Just let that go a couple times and then let's go back to the start, low intensity. And you always still can mute things. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. But you know that you have kind of a baseline set up. So that is a pretty fun way to do things. It takes a little bit more to set up, because like after you have the pattern done the way you want, then you have to make sure that you're good with it, because otherwise it's even more of a pain to go back and change it later. But then once you're done, then you have to copy it multiple times, and then basically I had like this is the full one on 5 and 13 here, so I just like pattern and then 5 copy and then 6 paste, and now I can go over to this one And it's only copied this, not this, so that's why it sounds not full. Then I was like, okay, I don't want 11 or 12, so I would go to like track 11 and then clear the sequence, and track 12 and clear the sequence. And now this one, like without having to change any muting, has those things removed from it. So I'm just going to remove that. So that's how I set that up. Another way you can do that if you don't want to clear the sequences is you can just use pattern mutes. So you would, so again, pattern, copy, paste. So I would go to pattern 6 and then go into pattern mute mode. So double tap so that it's in purple. And then I would just remove those. So now this is saved with the pattern. So if you then leave pattern mute mode and stay in global mute mode, then you can't mess those up. You'll see them flashing purple there to indicate that those ones are muted. But then I can go back here and then it'll have the full ones, and then I go back to 6 and it's muted. So it's probably actually an easier way to do that than clearing the sequences, but I don't know. It's whatever makes more sense to your brain in the end, is the whole point of this video. And for this mode, you really are going to want to make sure that you're using this perform kit mode, because if you are doing any tweaks, you have multiple copies of the pattern that you're switching between, and it'll sound really weird if the sound goes back to the beginning when you change patterns, and then when you go back to that one, it's back to where you had tweaked it. You probably want it to change consistently with your kit across all patterns, and then you can reload it when you want. So that's just, I would really use that if you can. But if you don't have the Digitone 2 or Digitakt 2 and you're just kind of doing this on the originals, which totally works as well, you don't need it. You just have to be aware that if you do make changes to a pattern on one spot, that when you change to the next pattern, it's not going to have that. And you have to remember when you go back to the first one, it will still be changed until you like quickly reload. If you're not on the ball, then it might sound a bit off. And yeah, you can also like make rhythmic or melodic changes in between each of the in this mode. If you're, it's a nice way to like just make some kind of subtle changes, because like even though the primary focus of this idea is the mutes, you can also just make it slight variations of the pattern. So like maybe like the kick pattern is a bit different when you change it to one thing. So you're never limited in that way, because the pattern doesn't have to be the same, even if your primary focus is the mutes for doing this. And then the third way of performing is pretty similar. It's kind of related, or it can actually be used with either of the two methods kind of in conjunction, and that's using pattern chains. Pattern chains are something that I don't think a lot of people use. They're more common on some other devices, but the implementation here is a little bit weird, but it works still. You can, and it can take off another layer. It's where you're basically not worrying about changing patterns at all, and the mutes even are kind of changing by themselves. So let's do it with that last way, where so hit pattern, and then it'll be function Y for chain, and then so function yes, and now we're in the chain building screen. So I'm gonna say play 1 twice, and then 2 twice, and then we'll play 9 twice, and then 1 twice again, and then 3 twice, 4 twice, and then 5 twice, or 13 twice, whatever. Let's just say yes for that. So now the chain is queued up. The thing about this that I don't like is that I don't think there's any indicator of playing a chain. So you're just going to have to kind of remember that you're in a chain. and there's no way to see where in the chain you are. So it is easy to get lost. So it's a bit of a kind of a messy thing, but it's kind of like a simplistic song mode where once you have this set up, it's gonna keep progressing. See, now it's changed to the next thing, and I could like be performing and tweaking parameters on top of this the whole time. I'm kind of like tired and lethargic and packing for a trip, so I'm not really bothering to actually do the performance, and I'm also out at practice a little bit. But you can hear with this idea that it's continuing to progress, and you can just play willy-nilly on top of things without worrying about muting, unmuting, and pattern changes or anything like that. So the only thing with this is that you need some foresight of not only having the pattern set up, but also knowing how you want the song to progress and being okay with that continuing in that order while you perform. There's lots of options there, but you can always make another pattern while it's playing and override it. Like now I just want to do like 1 and then 5, and now it's going to override and play that chain. We're just going to do that once and then skip to the full 5-1. So that's fine, you can do that. But yeah, I wish that there was some kind of visualization to see like that a chain is playing or where in the chain you are. Because if you hit pattern, even there's not anything. And if you hit funk yes, it says chain is empty. It doesn't show you what the chain is currently that's playing. So it's a little disappointing there, but it's a fun feature still, and it's a lot better than the pattern chaining used to be, because you don't have to like hold anything and you can just press it and then do. It works a lot better than the OG ones back in the day on these version 2s. But yeah, you can also do that for just single patterns, and just like if I want like to play to be still kind of manually muting and doing everything like the first way, but want it to automatically transition into a chorus or something, or a B section, so I can be like pattern chain, and be like play this 4 times and then play the chorus 4 times, and then it'll loop between those. I don't need to show you, but that's just an easy way to make sure that your song keeps progressing at like the pace that you want without you kind of forgetting about that part. This is all kind of like ways to compensate for the fact that you'll probably forget things while you're playing. I do it all the time, and pretty much everybody does, even like professionals, you know. Professionals. I'm obviously not a professional. Another downside with the pattern chains is that you can't save a pattern chain. So yeah, if you have it set up the way you want, you're going to have to go through and manually press the pattern chain order every time before you start playing. So just be aware of that. There's no way to save the chain. Okay, and the last method is the one with the big fancy button, and that's song mode. So I've made a dedicated video on song mode before, I think when it first came out. So I'm not going to get too into the details of song mode, but like I have a song set up, and this is how I did the song. Oops. So the thing, song mode is laborious. It is by far the most pain in the butt to set up out of everything. You have to make you're basically making songs like the first way, where you're just making the patterns, like single pattern for the main thing, single pattern for the chorus or B section or whatever you're doing for your song, and then using song mode to edit the mutes so that each lane has different like cutting in and out different instruments like that. So it's basically like using the pattern mute mode on the when you are doing the multi-pattern thing that I showed before. So it takes a long time, and the double pain is when you're using multiple electrons. You have to do the song twice. Sort of. I mean, you do or you don't. You do if you want to be controlling mutes on both devices automatically, but you can also just have the pattern or the song controlling one device and then manually muting the other one. Up to you. But just know that it is a pain if you're doing it on two devices. That is for sure. So I have it set up on these to be synced, so everything works with each other, and I have them all labeled like verse, whatever. What the hell am I doing? There we go. So like I have verse, break, chorus, noise, chorus, blah blah blah, jam, jam. So it's good in that way, in that you can keep track of where you are. But you also have to make sure that like this has 4 pages, it says 2 pages, so I have to know that like on this it needs to play double the amount of times per line to sync up with this one. You just kind of go line by line and just keep testing it and see if it works. And it's kind of more like making a song with a tracker, like something like an M8 tracker or something, which, you know, a lot of people love doing. You just have to have a little bit more patience. And that's the way that has the most control and the most take your hands off of things. And that lets you just 100% focus on parameters. You don't have to worry about mutes. You don't have to worry about pattern changes. And it's going to be perfect from beginning to end. And it'll sound like a beautiful studio song. So if you have the patience for it, it is the least fun way to play, but it is the cleanest way to play for sure. So it's kind of depends on what you want for the song. I use it quite a bit for like my big songs, just because I want to have it like sound fairly clean for when I do like the final recording that usually ends up like on an album or something. But I don't know. It's sometimes I just don't want to bother because it does take a lot of time and it's not fun to do. But one other thing that you can do while you're playing is you can like hang on a line for a while by while you're on the song thing. The left arrow is loop, so you have to do it on both to make sure that one doesn't progress and the other does. And now it'll just stay here forever until I progress. So if you hit you don't have to always, if you're playing live, you don't have to have it play the same way and be the same length. You can have it like stop where you want and perform there and do whatever you want for a while, and then when you want it to continue on, just like release the loop and then it'll keep going. And you can also change which line you're on, and it shows you if you've labeled them. Shows you if you've labeled them, which ones they are, and then you can hit yes to load them. So after this, I think it should jump to the break, if that was set up. Yeah, so it jumped to the break. And even to note, this is line 6, this is line 7, so like, depending on how you have it set up, like they might not even be the same line, but they do line up for me. I can't remember exactly why that is. I think I had to have... Oh yeah, so this has... The intro goes twice for some reason. Anyways, that's some mystery of the past because I did that like a couple months ago and I don't even remember why. Anyways, I'm going to end this here, and hopefully it's some kind of interesting or useful to somebody. I put off making this video for a while because I felt like it was going to kind of overload my brain. and it's not the most fun topic, but I don't know. I think it's kind of useful, and it's good to think about the big picture now and then of like how are you even playing it, let alone like what are you doing with the music itself. Like making sure that you have like a plan for your structure of how you want to be playing the song when you're done is probably good going into it, so that you kind of don't end up messing things up for yourself. It's easier. They're making things slowly easier. Like on these now, you can move tracks around if you've kind of like messed up in that way, and it's easier to copy and paste and move patterns than it used to be. So like it's less important, but it's still good to go in with a plan of how you want to be playing. But anyways, I'm going to end it there. And yes, if I've managed to edit and put up this video before I leave for my trip, then this will be the last one for a little while until I get back. And then by then, hopefully, the Dreadbox Artemis should be on this shelf. And then there'll be a lot of videos involving that. And I cannot wait. Okay, and I hope that you have a great day. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate everything. And yeah, I also have a announcement coming up at the end of the month, so keep an eye out for that. And yes, thank you again, and goodbye.